their information. So many people try to hug things to their chest, and the more eyes, the better. I feel on this, don't you?
I absolutely do. Collaboration is key, but more fundamentally and equally interesting to me is how, and it's not that surprising, people who've never met each other, who've never discussed anything with each other, are reaching the same conclusions about evidence, archaeological evidence, historical evidence, linguistic evidence from translating texts. People are independently reaching the same conclusions because, in my opinion, the science stands on its own 2 feet. Any reasonable person
Absolutely.
is going to make the same conclusions. And I'm glad you mentioned Nancy Talbot. I want to check her out. And the other guy we were talking about, Kat, was Robert, the
Yes, that's who Nancy
kind of
has worked with.
clairvoyant. Yeah,
Yeah,
clairvoyant. I'm having a trouble with his last name. I think it starts with a B,
it
but don't
does.
quote
Let
me
me
on
see if
that.
I can find him.
And I wrote him a message from his website, but I would imagine he's inundated with messages and having a hard time keeping up. I also understand he's not real strong in English, and that's a fair statement about my Dutch as well. Not good.
I understand.
So my
It
bad.
makes it a little tough.
Sorry, Robert. I apologize for not speaking your language. But my understanding is that he is getting what we would call premonitions about impending crop circles and drawing them out. An American filmmaker went over with camera and tagged along for a week and filmed one of these episodes where I think it was 3 a.m. Robert had an intuition and he scribbled down a rough sketch, but it was exact to a crop circle they then drove to. So by 4:30 in the morning, they're at the site of a crop circle, and from overhead, I guess they had a drone, as I recall, drone footage from overhead, they showed that it was certainly the sketch drawn was not as precise as the crop circle, but the basic components were identical. This is basically remote viewing, so seeing a drawing from another state of consciousness, and in this case before the event happened, or as it was happening perhaps, saying we're going to do this crop circle, and there you go, and there it is. I'm a little sketchy on just the sequence of events, and this could be hoaxed. This guy
Well,
Robert could
actually,
be working with a team. I can't say,
well,
but
actually, I have it's Robert Vandenbroek, and if I mispronounce that, I apologize. But in 2017, um, he has there was one that looked like an apple with circles around it. There's all kinds of things, and he does get the premonitions, and they're not necessarily when it's complete. He gets them prior to the situation occurring and has taken people to actually see ships that were making them.
wow, I hadn't heard
It's
that part.
it's pretty interesting, and he's been doing this for I really don't even know exactly how long, but he's fascinating. And just to contemplate being able to do what he does is quite something.
It is. And then the psychologist in me wants to know why. Why him? Why now? What's the point? Okay, he has premonitions of crop circles. Is he getting other messages as well? Because that would start to get really interesting.
He does get other messages. So it is interesting. He's a fascinating person. And he actually, I think in the last year or so, appears to have become more proactive. He's not as difficult to reach. He is more willing to share. He is, at first, he was fairly reclusive with this because people were not kind. And now I think that he has determined that if he's going to get his information out there, then he just needs to do it himself. So,
I think Grant Cameron was over there visiting and or somehow, maybe they met up at a UFO conference. In any event, these two crossed paths, and I'm pretty sure Grant interviewed Robert, and that would be a great listen as well.
It would be.
Mr. Cameron gives a great interview.
He does.
We had the pleasure of meeting him last year at Ozark Mountain UFO Conference. Remember, Kat?
I do, and I had him on my show as a result of that. And
I bet that was special.
It was very special, and that was shortly before the Contact in the Desert event, which he was going to be appearing. It was wonderful. So I was pretty pleased with that, because he is a fascinating person. His books are wonderful. I think that my favorite aspect of his work is when he's discussing, downloads being given by aliens who share, like, the great musicians, the great composers who would sit down and in 20 or 30 minutes have written a symphony that continues with musicians and songwriters, composers today, saying, oh, well, I just got that. I just set right down.
Inspiration.
It's a little more than inspiration in his opinion, but yeah.
When I write, it's much the same, and I trance out in the sense that time passes without my conscious awareness. Mm-hmm. I have to look up and see if I write articles on time as well as word count.
Yes.
And if I exceed time, I'm no further compensated, so there's no incentive to do so. And it's a great discipline, writing on time.
Yes, it is. I only write on time because I only have a certain amount that I allocate for that. But you know what? We have to go to a break. I want to continue that, and we'll be right back.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son? What are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome!
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy, I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk radio.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. Hello, we are back. Sorry to ditch y'all like that. I'm kidding. Of course we wouldn't ditch y'all. We love you. But we did have a commercial break that we needed to take, and we are back. Of course, my guest here on Fate Mag Radio is Jean Broida, and I'm enjoying our conversation, but I always do. So welcome back, Jean.
Well, thanks, Kat. And it's a real pleasure to be on your excellent show. And I do want to congratulate you for becoming, and very deservedly, the voice of fate. That is so awesome.
I enjoy it because I love everything anomalous. You know, I do my other program, Paranormal Experienced, and I do not believe that simply spiritual things are paranormal. I think that anything out of the norm is paranormal. That includes ufology, cryptids, everything else. But because that show is called Paranormal Experience, most people expect it to be about ghosts and hauntings. And of course, I love those too. So I don't have a problem with that. But I feel like I'm much more free with Fate Mag Radio because the quote describing Fate magazine has been, the strange and true. I think that's wonderful.
I think it's wonderful too, and I think they chose wisely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
You've already had some great guests on, more to come.
Yes.
You are so welcoming and you put people at ease. It's so much fun to chat with you for any length of time. Certainly highlight of my day.
Well, that's because we care about each other and we enjoy that conversation. So we're friends on top of being colleagues. And I like that too.
That is so true. I do enjoy that. Now, I wanted to revisit just slightly this Robert van der
Broek.
Broek.
I'm not sure if that's how you say that, but I think
you're
it's
probably
close.
right. So he must have a book in the offing. And speaking of books in the offing and channeling, or as Grant Cameron and others are calling, the downloading of cosmic information, possibly extraterrestrial source information, something along this line, I'm holding in my hands a very perplexing book.
Ooh.
Edited by Lawrence R. Spencer, who wrote The Oz Factors and got permission, in fact, was approached by Matilda O'Donnell McElroy. McElroy is her last name. And the compilation of her notes, medical notes, and recollections is a book called Alien Interview. Are you familiar with this one, Kat?
I am.
Alien Interview, basically edited by Lawrence R. Spencer, based on the medical interviews conducted by a military nurse who had telepathic communication, allegedly had telepathic communication with one of the surviving aliens of, I believe, Roswell UFO crash, or something near to that time. And what we think of as Roswell may have been two crashes. There's a lot of confusion in the literature about what really happened, as far as I know. And I don't claim to be an expert on Roswell, although the third chapter of my book is about it. My book is an overview, an introduction, and a storybook. And if people get interested in a subject or a case, they can certainly do a much deeper dive. Many, many books have been written on any of the chapters in my book. But it's interesting